There are moments in life that seem to divide everything into two parts: the person you were before and the person you became after. A business opportunity that failed, an important exam you couldn't clear, a relationship that unexpectedly ended, or a dream you spent years chasing only to watch it fall apart. Most people believe the greatest loss is the opportunity itself. But psychologically, that's rarely the deepest wound. The real damage begins when that failure quietly changes the way you see yourself. Suddenly, every new decision feels uncertain. Every opportunity is approached with hesitation. Your own judgment no longer feels reliable. Without realizing it, one painful experience begins influencing every decision that follows. The greatest consequence of failure isn't always losing something external. Sometimes it's losing the ability to trust your own mind. And once that happens, the biggest obstacle in your life is no longer failure itself. It's the growing belief that you'll only repeat it. In this video, we'll uncover the psychological mechanism behind why major failures create a self-reinforcing feedback loop of doubt, why your own mind eventually stops trusting your decisions, and how rebuilding your life doesn't begin with massive achievements. It begins with rebuilding the trust you have in yourself, one small promise at a time. Welcome to the Glitch Cult, where we investigate the forces that quietly influences the way we think, decide, and live our lives. Most people think a major failure damages their confidence, but confidence is rarely the first thing to disappear. The deeper damage happens when you begin losing trust in your own judgment. Every important decision you've ever made was based on the belief that your mind could evaluate a situation and choose the right path. A major setback challenges that belief. Whether the business that failed, a relationship that ended, or a goal that slipped away after years of effort, your brain doesn't simply register the outcome. It begins asking a far more personal question. If I was so convinced this would work, how can I trust my own decisions again? That question quietly changes the relationship you have with yourself. The human brain is constantly trying to predict the future. Every experience becomes information that helps it decide what is safe, what is dangerous, and what should be avoided. Most of the time, this system works remarkably well. But a major failure carries something that ordinary setbacks don't. It carries emotional weight. The more painful the experience, the more seriously your brain treats it as evidence. Instead of seeing it as one event that happened under a specific set of circumstances, your mind begins treating it as proof about your own ability to judge situations. Without realizing it, one painful outcome slowly becomes the reference point for every important decision that follows. This is where the real transformation begins. The next time an opportunity appears, your brain is no longer focused on what you could gain. Instead, it becomes preoccupied with what you could lose. It starts replaying old mistakes, searching for similarities, imagining worst-case scenarios, and questioning decisions that once felt obvious. What looks like overthinking is often your brain trying to prevent another painful experience. It believes that hesitation is protection. It believes that avoiding uncertainty is wisdom. But while this strategy may reduce the risk of immediate disappointment, it also quietly reduces your willingness to act. Over time, this creates a feedback loop that most people never notice. Because you trust yourself less, you hesitate more. Because you hesitate more, you take fewer opportunities. With fewer opportunities comes fewer successful experiences that could have challenged your doubts. Your mind interprets this lack of progress as further evidence that its fears were justified. Every avoided decision strengthens the belief that avoiding action was the right choice. Gradually, self-doubt stops feeling like an emotion and starts feeling like reality. This is why the greatest consequence of a major failure isn't always the opportunity you lost. It's the silent shift in the relationship you have with yourself. The world may still offer new possibilities, but your mind no longer approaches them with curiosity. It approaches them with suspicion. Without realizing it, your future is no longer being shaped by what is possible. It's being shaped by what you're trying to avoid. And perhaps that's the most dangerous part of all, because the moment you stop trusting your own judgment, failure is no longer something that happened in your past. It quietly begins influencing every decision you make about your future. If losing self-trust happens gradually, then rebuilding it has to happen the same way. Unfortunately, this is where most people make another mistake. They believe the solution is to become more motivated, think more positively, or convince themselves that the next attempt will be different. But your mind doesn't work that way. After major failure, it becomes cautious for a reason. Simply telling yourself to believe again doesn't erase the memory of what happened. In fact, forcing yourself to feel confident before you're ready often creates even more frustration because your thoughts and your experiences no longer agree with each other. Think about someone who has broken every promise they've ever made to you. If they suddenly asked you to trust them again, you probably wouldn't. Not because you hate them, but because trust isn't rebuilt through words. It is rebuilt by watching someone consistently do what they said they would do. Strangely enough, your mind treats you exactly the same way. It watches your behavior far more carefully than it listens to your intentions. Every time you promise yourself that you'll start tomorrow, wake up early, exercise, study, or finally begin working towards your goal, your mind quietly observes whether you actually follow through. Over time, it forms an opinion about you based on what you repeatedly do, not what you repeatedly hope. This is why rebuilding self-trust rarely begins with life-changing decisions. It begins with promises so small that they almost seem insignificant. Reading one page instead of an entire book. Going for a 10-minute walk instead of promising to transform your body. Spending 15 focused minutes on a project instead of waiting for the perfect burst of motivation. These actions don't change your life because of their size. They change your life because every time you keep one of those promises, your mind witnesses something it hasn't seen in a long time. You said you would do something, and you actually did it. At first, nothing feels different. The doubts don't disappear overnight, and the fear of failing again may still be there. But something subtle begins to change. The relationship you have with yourself slowly starts repairing. The voice that constantly questioned your judgment becomes a little quieter. Not because you've convinced it to disappear, but because you've gradually given it fewer reasons to doubt you. One kept promise becomes two. Two become 10. 10 become a habit. And before you realize it, your mind no longer remembers you as the person who only made plans. It begins recognizing you as someone who made those decisions and stood by it. Perhaps that's the real secret behind rebuilding your life after a major failure. You don't begin by chasing the biggest goal again. You begin by becoming someone your own mind can rely on. Because the life you've always imagined is rarely built in one extraordinary moment. It is built through hundreds of ordinary moments where your actions quietly prove that your future is no longer being controlled by your worst mistake. It is being shaped by the promises you continue to keep one day at a time.